Do you find yourself constantly stressing over the chaos that's happening in your life? If so, stay tuned and I will teach you how to find rest in God today. What is going on, everyone? We are back for another episode of Prospering with Christ. I hope that you had a wonderful week last week, and I hope that this week will be just as amazing to you as well. So, for today's episode, we are discussing the topic of resting in God. For a lot of us, life has been very chaotic lately. When we go to God, we're not just going to Him about the things that we want, we're going to Him about the things that we need. We need this breakthrough. We need Him to show up. We need Him to provide for us. Time is running out. We need this in a specific amount of time. And when we see our needs and we don't see things coming together, we don't see things working out for our good, it causes us to stress. And some of us have been stressing and working so hard to the point that we are burning out. We are trying and trying and trying and trying. We're doing everything that we can possibly think of to make things work out, to better our situation. And guess what? We're not seeing our situation getting better. The only thing that's happening is we're getting burnt out. We're getting tired. We don't have the energy anymore. We don't want to fight anymore. We want to give up. We're accepting this as our reality. We're accepting this as our end destination. But I want to read to you Matthew chapter 11, verse 28 through 30. It says, "Then Jesus said, 'Come to me, all of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. Let me teach you, because I am humble and gentle at heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy to bear, and the burden I give you is light.'" The reason why you are burning out, the reason why you are tired is because you are trying to make this happen on your own. But God is saying to you today, this is not your burden to carry. You do not have to operate in your own will to get you out of this situation. Come to me. Give me the situation. Give me the burden. Give me what's ever stressing you. Give me what's ever burning you out, and I am going to give you rest. And before we move on, I just want to take a moment to talk to you about the word rest. See, a lot of people are going to be hesitant to take this in and allow God to give them rest because they don't understand what rest means. So let's play a little game real quick. I want you to take a minute and I want you to answer this question. What is your definition of rest? When you think of the word rest, when you think of God giving you rest, what do you think that means? For a lot of people, we think when God says He's going to give us rest, our mind goes to, well, we're not going to do anything at all. We're going to be lazy. We're just going to sit around all day. We're just going to sit back, kick our feet up, watch TV, eat some popcorn, and allow God to just work everything out for Himself. But that is not the definition of rest. I took it upon myself to actually go and look up what is the biblical meaning of rest. So when I looked up what the definition of rest is, it says to enter God's rest means to be at peace with God. It's to have peace. I even took this a step further and I decided to look up the regular definition of rest. And of course, it has multiple definitions, but one of them is an instance or period of relaxing. So I decided to take this one more step further and I decided to look up what the definition of relax means. And the definition of relax means to make or become less tense or anxious. So basically, when you look up the definition of rest, whether it's the biblical definition or it's the regular definition, when you look up the definition of relax, it means peace, I'm taking the stress away from you. I'm taking the anxiousness away from you, and I'm giving you peace. See, when God says that he will give you rest, he's not saying don't do anything at all. He's not saying operate from a state of laziness. He is saying, I'm going to allow you to move without this being a burden on you. This isn't going to be a burden that you're stressing yourself out, trying to figure out how to make it go away, trying to figure out how to overcome it. You're going to have peace in the transition. You're going to have peace on this journey. This is not going to be a burden. I'm going to take the burden and I'm going to give you peace so that you can walk in fulfillment. You can walk with joy and you can walk without stressing. See, God is saying, I want to give you rest on this journey. But you have to be willing to follow me in a restful position. You have to be willing to follow me in the right state of mind. Because as long as you are trying to follow me and you're stressing, as long as you are trying to follow me and you're anxious, as long as you're trying to follow me and you're afraid, it's never going to work. You have to give me those feelings so that I can give you rest. I can give you peace. See, a lot of us struggle to accept God's rest because we don't understand what resting means. Like I said, when we think of rest, we think of being lazy. We think of not doing anything at all. And sometimes God may be calling you to be in a state where you just stop, to be in a state where you wait on him. And in order for you to fully operate in that state, in order for you to fully be obedient when he tells you stop and wait on me, you're going to have to accept his rest. Because see, when you are operating from a place of being stressed, you're operating from a place of being anxious, you're trying to hurry up and figure something out. You feel like time is running out. That I have to the end of the month to pay this bill. I have to the end of the month to get my child out of that school. I have a deadline on when I need this thing to be done. When you allow the stress from that situation to be what's leading you, you're not going to be obedient when God tells you to wait. You're not going to be obedient when God tells you to stop. When you're operating under the mentality of stress, you're going to look at your situation and you're going to say, stop. No, I should be doing more actually. What I'm doing right now isn't enough. I can't stop. I can't rest. I can't sleep. I have to keep going until this thing happens. I have to keep going until I get my breakthrough. And you may think that that mentality is right, but that mentality could be the very thing that is keeping you struggling. See, the reason why God wants you to stop for a moment, the reason why God wants you to wait on him is because when you wait, then you'll open yourself up to hear him. See, the reason why you're struggling so much is because you're trying to figure it out on your own. You pray to God, but you don't give him a chance to answer you. You're always on go mode. You're always trying something new. You're always trying to figure something out. But then when things aren't coming together and when things aren't working out, you look at God and you say, God, where are you? And God is saying, I've been here the entire time. You just haven't given me an opportunity to speak to you. See, I'm not telling you to wait so that you could be lazy. I'm not telling you to stop because I want to prolong your breakthrough. I'm telling you to wait. I'm telling you to stop so that I can give you the instruction on what to do. And then when you get this instruction, you'll realize that once you follow it, you're going to get to your breakthrough faster than the road that you're on right now. The road of stressing, the road of worrying, the road of panicking. That road makes it feel like you're doing something. It makes it feel like you're getting somewhere, but you're actually going nowhere. You're going to the destination of destruction. But if you can just take one moment to stop and wait on me and allow me the opportunity to actually speak to you, then we can get you to your breakthrough. And when you start operating in real rest, meaning having peace on your journey. It's not going to be hard for you to stop when God says stop. It's not going to be hard for you to wait when God says wait, because you have peace and you trust that everything that God tells you to do is going to work out for your good. You're no longer allowing the emotions built up by your circumstances to lead you. You're fully allowing God to lead you. Another reason why it's hard for you to accept God's rest is because all of your life you have been taught that if you want something, if you want success, if you want a breakthrough, you need to hustle and be independent to get it. So many of us have been taught that nothing in life comes easy. So many of us have been taught that the reward is in the grind. So many of us have been taught that we need to hustle and we need to work hard to get what we are praying for, to get the things that we desire. But if you look up the definition of hustling, it says two different things. Number one, forcing someone to move hurriedly. Two, obtained by forceful actions or persuasion. The definition of hustle is teaching you to forcefully get something quick. And getting something quick by force and resting in God completely contradicts each other. When you are operating in the mentality of that you have to hurry up and get something quick, it starts to build up those emotions of anxiousness in you. You start to panic. Your focus is not on God. Your focus is on the deadline of whatever quick is. If quick is by the end of the month or the end of the year, your focus is on that time frame. You're not focusing on God. When God tries to tell you, let me give you peace. When God tries to tell you, take a moment and allow me to speak to you. When God tries to tell you, let's try it this way or come down this road, you are like, I don't have time for that. I am looking at the clock. I got to do whatever in my power I can do to make sure that I get this breakthrough or get this blessing by the end of the month or by the end of the year. Hustling contradicts resting in God. And so many of us have been taught that we got to get it out the grind. We got to get it out the mud. We got to hustle. We got to work hard. We got to get it. And that mentality is the very thing that is stopping us from resting in God and doing what God wants us to do and accepting the peace that He wants to give us. Another reason why it is so difficult for some of us to accept God's rest is because when we are in sticky situations, we do not know how to follow God. See, when we're in a situation or we're in a bind and time is running out and we don't want something, we actually need it. We need money to eat tonight. We need to pay our bills by the end of the month. We need to move to another state or move out of our parents' home. It's not that we're praying for something that we just want or something that we just desire. We're praying for something that we actually need. When we're in a situation like that, it is so hard for us to listen to God. We tend to get into the mindset of, okay, I'm going to figure this out. If I need money to eat tonight, I'm going to figure out how to make money. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to God and I'm going to pray that God allows my plans to work. And I know that this is hard to hear because when you're in a situation like this, why wouldn't you try to figure something out? But God is saying there's a reason why your ways ain't working. Because your ways are not my ways. So I understand that time is running out. I understand that this is something that you need. But what you really need is you need to come to me because I know what to do to get you out of this. I know what to do to provide for you. See, I'm not required to bless your plans. I'm not required to get on board with your roads. You're supposed to be following me. And we have to stop asking God to follow us and learn how to start following Him and resting and having peace while we do it. Are you enjoying this episode so far? Is this episode teaching you how to rest in God? If so, then I want you to do me two favors. Favor number one, I want you to leave a review. You can leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening to this episode. Leave an honest review and let me and others know how you are enjoying the show. And favor number 2, if you know anyone who has been operating from a state of anxiousness, it's like things are happening in their life is very chaotic, it seems like time is running out, and they're struggling to trust God, follow Him, and accept His rest, then I want you to send this episode to them. Let this episode motivate and encourage them the same way that it is motivating and encouraging you. Now let's get back to the show. I want to read to you Acts chapter 9. It says, "Meanwhile, Saul was uttering threats with every breath and was eager to kill the Lord's followers. So he went to the high priest. He requested letters addressed to the synagogues in Damascus, asking for their cooperation in the arrest of any followers of the way he found there. He wanted to bring them, both men and women, back to Jerusalem in chains. As he was approaching Damascus on this mission, a light from heaven suddenly shone down around him. He fell to the ground and heard a voice saying to him, 'Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me?' 'Who are you, Lord?' Saul asked. And the voice replied, 'I am Jesus, the one you are persecuting. Now get up and go into the city, and you will be told what you must do.' The men with Saul stood speechless, for they heard the sound of someone's voice, but saw no one. Saul picked himself up off the ground, but when he opened his eyes, he was blind. So his companions led him by the hand to Damascus. He remained there blind for 3 days and did not eat or drink. Now there was a believer in Damascus named Ananias. The Lord spoke to him in a vision, calling, 'Ananias.' 'Yes, Lord,' he replied. The Lord said, 'Go over to Straight Street to the house of Judas. When you get there, ask for a man from Tarsus named Saul. He is praying to me right now. I have shown him a vision of a man named Ananias coming in and laying hands on him so he can see again.' 'But Lord,' exclaimed Ananias, 'I've heard many people talk about the terrible things this man has done to the believers in Jerusalem, and he is authorized by the leading priest to arrest everyone who calls upon your name.' But the Lord said, 'Go, for Saul is my chosen instrument to take my message to the Gentiles and to the kings, as well as to all the people of Israel. And I will show him how much he must suffer for my name's sake.' So Ananias went and found Saul. He laid his hands on him and said, 'Brother Saul, the Lord Jesus, who appeared to you on the road, has sent me so that you might regain your sight and be filled with the Holy Spirit.' Instantly, something like scales fell from Saul's eyes, and he regained his sight. Then he got up and was baptized. Afterward, he ate some food and regained his strength." So as I was reading this story, there was a few things that stood out to me. Saul was going down a road that was not in alignment with God, and Jesus told him to follow his road, but he made Saul blind. Saul obeyed God's instructions, but he was in a space of resting. The most work that he did was pray. God showed him a vision, but it had been 3 days and no one came to heal him. So let's dissect this real quick. Can you imagine being blind and still having to have peace instead of anxiousness on your journey to healing? Because not only did Saul have to stay in that house and wait for Ananias, but he had to stay in that house blind. He had to hold on to nothing but a vision that God showed him, which he wasn't 100% sure that was going to come true. He had to let go of the emotions of depression, anxiousness, being stressed, being afraid, being worried, and just sitting there peacefully trusting God. See, if Saul made the decision to freak out, to get discouraged, to get anxious, and to leave the spot that God was telling him to wait in, he would have missed Ananias. He would have missed the person that God was sending to give him his blessing, to give him his healing. And so many of us give into our emotions. We give into the stress. We give into the anxiousness. We give into the discouragement, and we allow those emotions to make us move from the spot that God is telling us to wait in. He's not telling you to wait for no reason. He wasn't telling Saul to wait just for the fun of it. He was telling him to wait because the answer was already on the way. And the answer was not chasing down Saul. If Saul made the decision to leave that spot, if Saul made the decision to go not only from the house, but out from the attic, the answer was going to that destination. The answer was not going anywhere else. And God is saying, if you make the decision to leave the spot that I am telling you to stay in, you are going to miss your breakthrough. So you're wondering, why hasn't it happened yet? You're wondering, why isn't God answering me? And God is saying, you keep missing the call. God is saying, you keep moving from where I'm delivering it from. I'm telling you to wait here for a reason. And while you're waiting, I need you to give me your burdens. Give me those emotions so that I can give you rest. And rest does not mean not doing anything. Because some people are still going to listen to this and they're still going to think, well, you're telling me to be lazy. You're telling me to sit back and not do anything. That's not true. Because look at the story of Saul or Paul, whatever you want to call him. He was Saul at the time. Look at his story. He was in prayer. That is work. He wasn't in the attic just laying down. He wasn't in the attic just sleeping. He wasn't in the attic just lollygagging around. He was in the attic doing his part in faith. He was in the attic doing some work. So just because God is telling you, stay in this position, stay here, stay at this destination, does not mean that he wants you to lollygag around. It does not mean that he doesn't require you to do your part in faith. And your part could be more than prayer. Your part could be doing something physically. If you need food to eat tonight, your part could be talking to somebody. It could be door dashing to make some extra money. God is not telling you to be lazy. He's telling you to rest in him. And I hope by you listening to this episode, you now understand what it really means to rest in God. And so you have to make a decision. Are you going to continue to operate in your anxiousness, or are you going to take this journey resting in God? And if you're wondering, okay, I want to rest in God, but I don't know how to do it, the first thing that you need to do is you need to be honest with him. You need to figure out why you are struggling to accept God's rest. And you need to tell God those weaknesses. So for you, if it's that you have a deadline, right? Let's say that you have to the end of the month to make some money or your lights are going to get shut off. You can say, God, I don't know how to not be anxious. How am I not supposed to be stressed? How am I supposed to go day by day, acting as if everything is good, being at peace, not being afraid, not wondering what's going to happen next? That seems impossible for me. That's hard for me. I don't have the faith to do that. That is your weakness. And God is not going to be angry at you for telling him that you are weak in an area. He wants you to expose your weaknesses to him because now you're opening a door for him to help you. Also, if you haven't noticed by now, there are two different types of rest that God will give us. God will give us the rest of peace, but sometimes he may give us rest by telling us to stop or wait on him. And when it comes to the type of rest where God is telling you, slow down, stop, or wait for me to give you an instruction, you want to make sure that you are in a season of rest and you're not in a season of procrastination. Because for some of us, there's things that we want, but we're not willing to do what it takes to get it. And so that could be because we're a perfectionist. That could be because we're afraid. That could be because it makes us uncomfortable. But for whatever reason, we are not willing to do what it takes to get that blessing. And so sometimes God is not calling us to wait. He's not telling us to stop, but we want to stop, and we use the season of resting or God telling us to wait on him as an excuse to not move. So when somebody comes to you and they say, "Hey, why haven't you taken that step yet?" You say, "Well, I'm waiting on God to give me confirmation. I'm waiting on God to give me an answer. I'm waiting on God to tell me what to do." And sometimes God is saying, "I already said yes. I opened doors. I gave you opportunities. I provided you with the resources. I broke down to you how to do it. I told you the next step that needs to be taken. You do not need to wait on me. You are not in a season of rest. You are in a season where it is okay for you to move because you already have my answer. The only time when you need to rest is when you're waiting on God's answer. You're waiting for his instruction. You're waiting for him to come in and do something in your life. But if he already gave you that, there's no reason for you to be resting. Now you need to take what he said, you need to take what he gave you, and you need to run with it and do it. Have you ever dreamed of making your voice heard and sharing your message with the world? Well, it's time to turn that dream into a reality by starting your very own podcast. I understand that many aspiring podcasters are held back by the worries of cost, complexity, and the time it takes to launch a podcast. That is why I'm excited to announce my new training program that has all the tools and knowledge you need to launch your very own podcast for free. My training will guide you through every single step of your podcast journey. You will learn how to plan, release, market, and grow your podcast from start to finish. So if you're ready to take a leap of faith and share your message with the world, click the link in the description below to access my new podcast training. Now let's get back to the show. The next thing that you need to do is you need to make sure that you are always moving in alignment with God. See, for some of us, we start off following God, but as we go, we start to get off track. And the reason why is because, say, God gives us step one. We'll take step one, we'll do step one, but then we don't go back to him and wait for him to give us step two. We go and we try and figure out what step two is ourselves. We go and we try to figure out what we want to do as step two. And so after you be obedient to God, and that actually works out for your good, you want to go back to God and you want to say, "God, what's next?" And you have to sit and you have to wait in that space for God to give you an answer. Don't move ahead of him. Or if you're going to try and test by doing to see if you have, confirmation, if you have peace, or if you feel troubled in your spirit, ask God. First of all, take some time to actually allow him to answer you. Don't ask and then just go and try and figure it out. No, take some time and allow him to answer you. Then after you do that, if you're not hearing anything, say, "God, I'm going to test my spirit. I'm going to go. I'm going to try and figure this out. And if this is not your answer, trouble me in my spirit. If this is not your answer, correct me." And the last thing that you want to do is whenever you're feeling anxious, you want to find hobbies that will help soothe you and calm you down. See, for me, I have really, really bad anxiety. So I feel anxiety over things that ain't even that serious. And when I'm in that state, I like to do things like color on my iPad. I like to play The Sims in my free time. I like to listen to music. I like to do things and find ways to calm myself down and get my mind off of the things that's stressing me. And so, in those moments where you're about to have a panic attack, you're stressing so bad, your heart is beating, you're shaking, you're freaking out. In those moments, you want to find things to calm yourself down, whether it's prayer, whether it's playing a game, whether it's journaling, whatever type of hobby you have, whether it's cooking or painting or whatever. Find ways to calm yourself down. And so remember, resting is not being lazy. Resting is accepting God's peace and waiting on him to give you an answer. The reason why you struggle with rest is because of how chaotic your circumstance is because you were taught to be independent and hustle, or because of the time frame that you need your breakthrough in. Moving before God can possibly jeopardize your breakthrough. God is telling you to wait here because He is sending the answer here. And if you allow these stressful emotions to make you move from this spot, you are going to miss out on what God is trying to bring you. And for that reason, you have to learn how to rest in God. You have to be honest with God and tell Him what your weaknesses are. You have to make sure that you're in a season of rest and you're not just procrastinating. You have to go to God and wait on Him to give you an answer after every single step you take. And in those moments where you feel anxious, you have to find some hobbies to calm you down. And so, my action step for you today is I want you to go to God, be honest with Him about why you're struggling to rest, give Him your weaknesses, and then ask Him for His help. But that is all that I have for you today. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure that you subscribe so that you get a notification every time a new episode is released. Also, leave a review and let me and others know how you enjoyed the show. And if you want to stay connected, make sure that you follow me on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at Prospering with Christ. But that's all I have for you today, and I will see you next week.